Hello, everybody. This is Shayla Martin with Esri. Thanks for joining us today. We're here today to talk about what's new in ArcGIS for public transit. And just a few logistics before we get started to kind of familiarize you with the webinar format. On the right-hand side of your screen, you're going to see the GoToWebinar toolbar. You'll see a section there for handouts where we've uploaded some relevant content and material that you're able to download. There's also an area over there for questions. If you want to go ahead and type in any questions that you have throughout the presentation, we will be monitoring this, and at the end, we'll make sure to have some time to answer questions. The transit team at Esri is planning to hold 8 of these webinars this year. Next webinar is scheduled for February 28th, and the topic will be Effective Transit Route and Stop Level Planning with T-Best. The list of webinars can be found at esri.com/transportation. And you'll just check the webinars tab on that website. So I'm going to go ahead and introduce Jay Hagan. He is the solution engineer for our public transit team here at Esri, and he's going to cover various topics today. So welcome, Jay.
Great, thanks, Shayla. Good morning, everyone, or good afternoon, or maybe even good evening, depending on where you're at. I'm really excited to be sharing some stuff with you today. Well, let's take a look at some of the stuff we have planned for you today. So, like Shayla said, we're going to be doing about 8 of these webcasts this year. We'll try to keep these to about an hour. Keep it nice and tight. Hopefully, you'll get some good information out of this. So for today, I'm just going to kind of do a broad overview of some new technology that's been coming out. Some of this stuff was even kind of new to me, so it was fun to kind of learn about some of this stuff. So hopefully you'll find this interesting and most importantly useful within your job. So today I plan on covering the all-new redesigned collector for ArcGIS, and a lot of you may already be familiar with Collector. It's been out for a few years now. It's one of our most popular applications. It's really designed around field data collection, but it's been redesigned, and there's some really great enhancements that I think you'll really like and be able to take advantage of. I'm also going to quickly cover a new app that's in development. It's called Quick Capture. It's a rapid data collection application, and it's really designed for just really quickly collecting information. So while you're driving down the street, even as a passenger, you can be collecting information about assets or conditions, whatever it is it might be that you want to collect. After that, we're going to dive into some ArcGIS content. So not only are we a software company here at Esri, but we also are a geographic data and content organization. So we have thousands of data layers that we make available to you through the Living Atlas. So I'll do a review of that and show you how you can leverage that information. I also want to cover some live data sources that you can leverage for operational awareness. There's some freely available data that you can plug in. You can even plug in your own data if you have it as well to have a live view of what's going on, whether that's weather, traffic, or if you have the information, even your live bus locations. And then I'm going to wrap up with Esri Maps for Public Policy. This is a new application that we have. It's a web application for quickly kind of throwing together some maps for, I like to think of them for executives. So you need to quickly make some maps that show maybe some population statistics for your city and send that off to an executive. You can use this application to easily share that kind of content. Then we're going to turn it back over to Shayla. Shayla is going to review new ArcGIS user types. Those of you that are using ArcGIS online, you might have noticed that your user type has changed names. So Shayla is going to talk a little bit about that and what that means for you. Some really exciting stuff there as well. A lot more flexibility in how you can leverage your accounts now. And then we'll wrap up with questions and answers. So with that, let's go ahead and jump in and let's take a look at Collector. I'm going to be mostly working from a browser today, so I will be showing various web pages. When I'm finished, I can throw some of these links into the chat window so that you have them as well, so that you can go back and look at those at your own on your own leisure. So Collector for ArcGIS, this is a mobile data collection application. We like to think of it as kind of a map-centric way of collecting data. So if you happen to be on our previous webcast, I went over configuring Survey 123, which we think of as kind of a form-centric way of collecting data. Well, Collector is a map-centric way of collecting data. So it allows you to come in, you can view a map, you can collect new features, delete existing features, update existing features, update the attribute table, and so forth. And I'm guessing a lot of you are probably at least familiar with this, you've heard of it, you might even be using it. Well, Collector has been completely redesigned, and there's some really nice enhancements there. So let's take a look at the What's New page here. So just kind of looking at the high level at the bullet points, we have better looking, more performant maps. So the new maps within Collector can leverage vector tiling. So that's kind of a newer way of serving out base maps. The great thing about vector tiles versus traditional raster tiling is that it's a lighter weight data package. So especially if you're going offline, it's a smaller data download. They render much more quickly, and they're able to be modified. Whereas a raster is a photo, you can't really change that. You have to actually just create new raster tiles. Vector tiles, you can adjust the styling. Better use of screen real estate. So this is what I think is really nice. If you're an existing Collector user, depending on what type of device you're using it on, whether it's Android versus iOS, and then the type of phone, the form factor might be a little bit different, but generally speaking, you have a map on your screen and then you want to collect some data, the map goes away, you have to fill out the attribute table, and it can be a little bit clunky to go back and forth between the map. Well, they've solved that now, so now you can actually be looking at the map and collecting attribute information. If you want to, you can pull that attribute table up, and it's just a cleaner way of collecting the data, and we'll see that. There's a new way of collecting location data. So with the previous, I think we're calling it the classic version of Collector, which is still available. You would have to hold down on the map with your fingerprint and try to adjust where you wanted to place a point. Now there's just a crosshair, and you can actually see where you're trying to put that point. We'll take a look at that as well. Improved forms, so like I said, the form layout is much easier to use. The buttons that you need are accessible, so if you need to take a photo or have an attachment, those buttons are right there at the top, really easy to find, much easier to use. Streamlined offline workflows, so now taking maps offline is a lot easier now, and as somebody who's creating these maps, you can add pre-planned map areas so that the mobile data collectors can just download that map. They don't have to do that configuration on the app itself. You can have those maps ready to go for them. Just some improved tools, so you can work with a legend now. There's navigation built into Collector now, so if you're looking at an existing feature in your Collector map, you can actually get driving directions to that location now, which is really nice. You can work with 3D data now, so you can collect z-values, which is really interesting. So if anyone out there is collecting 3D data, we are now supporting that with the Collector. And kind of the last point here, the existing version of Collector isn't gone. So if you're wanting to get started with this new version of Collector, that's going to be called Collector. The old version of Collector is now called Classic. So that's still supported, it's still there. So if you're relying on that for existing workflows, that's not going away just yet. You still have access to that, so you can continue to use the Classic version of Collector. They're two separate apps, so they're built on a totally different set of code, so you can actually have both apps on your device. So let's actually take a look at how, let's take a look at this new version of Collector, see how it looks. But before I jump into that, I'd like to think about, well, how would we collect data? So for those of you that are using Collector, you might know that you need to set up a feature layer or feature service within your ArcGIS Enterprise or ArcGIS Online. And then with that, you need to create a web map and make that web map available for editing to whoever needs access to that out in the field. Well, I just wanted to show you something. And of course, there's a lot of ways you can create a feature service, but one interesting way that a lot of people might not be aware of is some of these configurable apps we have on our solutions site. So if you go to ArcGIS or solutions.arcgis.com, we have a whole set of solutions that are built out here that you can quickly deploy. And these solutions are built around a number of different verticals. So within local government, there's solutions for land records, public works, emergency management, law enforcement. For state government, agriculture, economic development, law enforcement, so forth. Emergency management, a number of different types of solutions. So I would encourage you to take a look at this website. There's a lot of solutions in here that you can deploy. The solutions are free to use. They might require various parts of our software platform to implement them, but the solution itself is free and it's fully supported by Esri. So if you have any issues with it, you can call into tech support and they can help you out with that. So thinking about collecting some data, I'm going to go in here to local government and I'm going to go into public works. And these are public works solutions. So one thing you might notice here is just because it's state government, local government, public works, some of these solutions could apply to other agencies. And in fact, I think some of these public works solutions could probably apply to a transit agency. So looking here, these are a number of different solutions that you can deploy, but we can look at inventorying right-of-way assets. And that's what we're looking at here. And I can create a street sign inventory. And that's probably something that a transit agency would do. You're probably going out there and you're tracking where your bus stop signs are, what condition they're in, and maybe a number of other attributes you'd want to know about that sign. Well, here's a configurable solution that you can deploy, and that will help you solve that problem. So we can come in here. This gives us some information about the solution, what's required to deploy it, software-wise, and what you get if you were to download this solution. So, and then step-by-step instructions on how to deploy this, what the workflow is like, and what tools you get with that. So it's all documented really well, and again, this is supported by Esri. So I could download this solution and deploy this, but what I want to show you is another solution that we have. And I'm going to go into ArcGIS Pro here. So this is an ArcGIS Pro project that I have open. I have no data in here. This is just a blank open project. And I'm going to go to my Share tab, and I have the ArcGIS Solutions Deployment tool here. So this is a free tool that you can download. It's on the Solutions site. And again, I'll provide links to this stuff in the chat a little bit later on so that you have this. You can deploy this tool, and then it becomes this button right here under the Share tab, and you can quickly deploy any of these solutions that we see on the solution site. So if I want to deploy the sign inventory, I can use the solution deployment tool to do this. I'm going to click on the solution deployment tool. It opens this task list for me. So tasks are something that's a feature of ArcGIS Pro, but it just gives you kind of a recipe or a list to follow to deploy something here. So the first step is to sign into your organization. So where is this solution going to be deployed? I'm already signed in, so you can see up here in the upper right-hand corner, I've already logged into my account. So it's already saying that the progress is finished here, so I'll click Finish. That's going to move me on to the next step, deploy the solution. So let's open this. Now this is going to give me a list of all of those solutions that are available from the solutions.arcgis.com site. So I can come into local government here, and I can see all of those solutions. I could also just do a search. So if I search for sign, this is going to give me a number of different applications that might have sign as a keyword. But here we see that sign inventory. So that's that sign inventory solution that we're interested in. All I have to do is select this and click deploy, and that's going to run. The reason this has a green check mark next to it is this is showing this has already been deployed. I actually deployed this yesterday because I didn't want to waste time having this upload. But in fact, these actually run pretty quickly. Something like sign inventory, if you were to deploy this, usually it takes around 30 seconds. And what it does is it creates a feature layer, or in this case, 2 feature layers, and we'll look at that. And it creates a web map, and it has everything packaged up nicely so that all you have to do is open Collector, and you can start using it. So we've already finished with that. The other thing you can do is you can configure these to meet your own needs. So there's a certain schema that's already been set up for a lot of these applications. If you need to adjust that, you can do that in this step here. And then the final step is if you already have existing data, you can load that data in with this step. But for this particular case, we're going to say that we don't have any existing data. We're just going to use the default option here. So let's start collecting some data. So let's look at what happened. So we deployed that solution. Let's go back to ArcGIS Online. So I'm going to open a new tab here. We'll go to arcgis.com. Going to sign in. And I'm going to go to my content. I'm actually going to delete these. I don't need these. But here's what's deployed from that solution deployment tool. So you can see here we have two different feature layers. So you can actually collect sign information and you can collect pole information. So the sign assembly itself, it allows you to collect both of those types of features. And then it also creates a web map for me. So those are kind of the three things that you need to be able to collect information using Collector. So that's all you really have to do is click that deployment button, and this is what you get. It's already been configured for you. Of course, you can come in here and make any adjustments that you want, but essentially you're ready to start using this right now. So let's go over to Collector and actually see this in action now. So I'm going to pull over my iPad here. And bear with me one second as I get that ready. Okay, so I'm going to open my Collector app, and here I just want to show you that, again, you can have the classic version of Collector. It's still supported. You can see it here on my screen. But I'm going to open the new version of Collector here. This is signing me in, and I can go to my Maps tab, and you can see right there in the upper left is the sign inventory map. And it might be kind of difficult to see on the screen there, but it even created a nice thumbnail for me too. So it's taking care of a lot of that configuration that sometimes takes up a lot of time. This is just the default right out of the box. So let's open this up, and now we can see we have a map. I already collected a sign here, so I wanted to show you that. So I'm going to click on this existing sign. This is giving me the information that I've already collected. But you can see here in this new layout, just the way the tools are laid out, much easier to use. So I can click here in the bottom left, and this is allowing me to edit this point. So you can see here I can work with the map and the attributes at the same time. If I want to change the location of this point, you can kind of see there on the crosshairs, it's much easier to use than the old version. So I can really kind of narrow down where I need to be here. I can update the point, it moves that for me. And when I'm ready, I click submit. It's pushing that up for me. If I'm ready to collect some new data, I just use the button in the lower right-hand corner there. It's asking me what do I want to collect. So maybe I want to collect a pole this time. It's looking at my current location. You can see here I'm inside the office, but I can move this out to the street if I want to. And you can see here that they have a lot of these subtypes and domains already set up for us. So I can just pick from a pick list here, what's the material, fiberglass. And this is the kind of thing that you can modify before you publish if you were to go through those extra steps in the deployment tool. This is just the default. But you can see here, we've worked with a lot of different agencies to see what kind of data that they collect. So they've done a good job here of kind of setting this up to be used quickly. When I'm finished, I'll click Add Point, I'll click Submit, and now I have my pole. Now I can select the pole there, and now I want to associate a sign with that pole. You can see on the left side, about 3/4 of the way down, it says Collect Here. So now I can collect a sign at that exact same location, and now collect the sign information that I need to get. I could take a photo with the device I'm using. I could upload attachments as well, and when I'm finished, I just hit submit. So you can just kind of tell just kind of the user interface for this is much cleaner than the classic version of Collector. So I hope you get a lot of good use out of this. I'm really happy with it. Like I said, I've just started using this, but I can see that there's a lot of great improvements with this. So I'd really encourage you to take a look at this new version of Collector if you haven't already. One thing I want to add is this just came out not too long ago. Right now, it's available for iOS. So if you're an iPad or iPhone user, if you go to your App Store, search for Collector, you'll be able to find this. We should have an Android version out shortly. I don't have a date for that, but I would be looking for that probably within the next few weeks. Okay, so I'm going to get rid of the iPad there. So that's just kind of a quick overview of the new Collector. So while we're on the topic of data collection, I would like to introduce Quick Capture to you. And I'm not going to spend much time on this, but I was hoping to just kind of introduce the technology to you. And I think one thing I would like to know is, after seeing this, if you could think of ways that you could leverage this within your agency, I'd really like to know about that. I mean, I have some ideas, but I'd really like to hear from you folks, you know, even if you want to type into the chat window there, if you have some ideas for how this could be leveraged, I'd love to hear that. So, Quick Collector. So this is from Esri Labs. So that's kind of the I'll say the kind of the development arm. So these are folks that are working on new technology, pushing new things out. So this has been in development for a while, but it is available. So you can go to your various app stores. So this one is supported on Android, iOS, and Windows, and you can download Quick Capture. And this is really for capturing data and incidents or events very quickly. And I think they refer to it as a big button app, which I really like. The idea is you just have a big button here. You're not even typing anything in. You're just using pre-configured features to capture the information that you need to get here. So this is an example of guardrails that are being collected. So the idea is somebody could be driving down the road. You could be going 30 miles an hour, and the passenger can be sitting there with Quick Collector, and they can quickly just press these buttons and be collecting information, and it can be point, linear, or even polygon data. So if there's a guardrail that starts at a certain point, you can click Start, and as you're driving along, that guardrail ends, click End, and it collects a linear feature for you. This works in a disconnected environment. In fact, it's always disconnected because it's collecting that information quickly, so it's storing it on your device. You can set the refresh rate as far as uploading that data, so you can wait till you get back in the office and upload the data to your database, or you can have it push every 30 seconds, every minute, however often you want that update to happen. You can have it push that data, but the data collection itself is happening disconnected. So again, I'll send this link for you here, but here's some of the nice features that it has. So of course, the offline data collection, really key for when you're in locations that you don't have a cell signal, but also again for that really quick data capture. You don't want to be waiting for you know, the internet to pick up before you start capturing that information. You need that data collection to be instant because you're likely moving. Also camera support, so you can configure buttons for capture of photos if you want to. You can tie into sensor information as well. So be collecting information from device sensors like your location, speed, direction of travel, and so forth. The background data capture, so it's not just points, but it's also lines and polygon features. And of course, this is configurable. So you configure the buttons that you need, the type of attributes that you require, and much like all of our solutions and applications, this requires no coding. This is just a configurable app that you can deploy and be running with quickly. Because this is really designed to be used in a mobile moving environment, it's kind of difficult for me to demonstrate for you as I'm in my office here, but I do have a short YouTube video. I'm going to pull this up for you. And you can kind of see here, now I said you should be a passenger. This person's clearly a driver, so I don't recommend this. But you can see on the left here, this person is collecting information, and on the right you can see that it's populating this map. So if this person's driving down the street, they're collecting information about road conditions, maybe potholes or other things that they want to be collecting here. But you can see that it's happening rapidly. They're just pressing a button. They're not collecting any attribute information beyond what's already configured there. So you can see there that's just a really quick way to be able to collect that data. So I'd be curious, and I'd like to hear from you guys, if you could think of ways that you could leverage that technology within a transit agency. So, some ideas I was thinking about is maybe you have, transit service managers out there on the road. Maybe they're just driving down the street, and maybe they're just looking for graffiti at bus stops. So, they don't even need to necessarily get out of their vehicle. They're just driving down the road. Oh, there's graffiti, hit the button. There's graffiti at the stop, I'll hit the button. Or maybe you could have a bus driver interface to where the bus driver could quickly collect some information. So if you have any thoughts on ways you could use this, I'd love to hear about that. And I'd also like to pass that along to our product team, because that's really where they get these ideas, is from hearing from folks like you that use the technology. Okay, so those were kind of the two data collection methods that I wanted to cover today. Now I'd like to talk to you about some various data sources that you have available to you. So I'd like to start off with the Living Atlas of the world. And this is the Living Atlas webpage here, livingatlas.arcgis.com. If you're ever unsure about an ArcGIS website, it's usually the product name.arcgis.com. That's what I've learned. And Google or other search engines are always your friend, but I will provide some links for you. So the Living Atlas is a collection of geographic data that Esri has curated, and we think of it as the largest atlas actually in the history of the world, which is kind of cool to think about, but it's literally thousands of different data layers, data that Esri has collected, created, and updated, but also data from other trusted sources and maybe even users like yourself. So, but we'd like to get the authoritative data source. So lots of data within here, so I'd encourage you to browse this. We come into the Browse tab here. We can see all of the different types of data that are available here. So we could look at trending data, for example, so current events, and this gives us information about current events. Within transit, we're probably interested in various demographic information. So maybe I'm interested in income information. So this gives me data layers that pertain to income. And again, this is a global data set. So if I'm interested in just a particular region, so if I want to look at the United States, this is narrowing down that information. And you can see there's a lot of information. Usage of H&R Block versus TurboTax, just a lot of very cool and interesting data that you can make use of. And of course, all of this is web enabled, so you can bring this into your ArcGIS web maps, whether you're using Enterprise or ArcGIS Online, you can make use of this. And in fact, I'll show you how you can do this. So here I'm using ArcGIS Online. This could be Enterprise with Portal just as well. I am logged into my account here, and I can add some data. So I'm going to click Add Data, and you might notice, you might have seen this before, you can browse Living Atlas layer. So this is your connection to that Living Atlas data. So just scrolling through here, you can see some information, but you can also sort this by relevance, date modified, different categories. So those are those categories that we saw on the web page. Or of course, you can just do a search. So I'm going to do a search for tapestry. And this is the US tapestry segmentation data. One thing I want to point out about this is whenever you pull up this Living Atlas content, there's a few different icons here. So this is showing us that this is authoritative data. It's recommended by Esri. We kind of back it up. So whether in this case this is an Esri layer, but even if it comes from an authoritative source, we'll put that we recommend that if it's a trusted data source. This is within the Living Atlas. So this is Esri curated. And then this guy here, this is showing that this particular layer is premium content. So you do have to be a subscriber to use this information. And what that means is this is using some of your credits to render the map. It's not a lot of credits, but I do want to make that clear to you that on some of these, and that's not all of the content in the Living Atlas, just a few of the layers that often they use proprietary data. Those ones do have a slight credit association with it. So we can add this layer now. And what's nice is a lot of these layers scale for us. So when we're looking here, we're looking at the lower 48, we're getting a county view of this, and you can click on any of these and it gives you a nice pop-up that's been set up for you. But as I said, a lot of these scale. So I'm in the Denver area, so I'll zoom in on Denver here. And you can see as I'm doing this, let me switch over to my legend here. You can see now we're at the zip code level. And as I zoom in a little bit further, we get down to the census tract. And in this case, we can even get down to the block group. So some of this data is gets down to a pretty fine geography here. This tapestry data can be pretty useful for a transit agency because it gives a nice summary of that particular community. So we've taken the entire United States, and our demographics team has divided it up into a number of different neighborhood types. And I think there's 50 or 60 some odd types of neighborhoods. But I think what's interesting is if you were to go in and look at your neighborhood, you'll probably see that it describes your neighborhood pretty well. So for this particular block group here, this is giving the population, the median age, diversity index, the median income, disposable income. But then it's also telling me that the predominant tapestry type is the Social Security set. So I can click on that. And this gives me just a nice profile of what this community is. So this is an older market. It's usually in metropolitan cities, probably a little bit of an older population. They live alone, a lot of rental properties. Here's some socioeconomic traits. And a lot of times this could be good to use if you're trying to do some community outreach and you're not really sure, what's the best method of doing outreach that is going to really get the audience that we want. I mean, this tells you that TV is an important part. So maybe a TV commercial would make sense versus putting something in a newspaper, for example. This gives kind of a demographic profile of this type of neighborhood. Here you get a market profile, which just kind of adds upon that. So this tells you that, they're dependent on Medicare and Medicaid. So, that a lot of that stuff can kind of tie into transit planning. So that type of neighborhood, probably lower income, they're going to be transit reliant. They may need to visit doctors and hospitals and clinics maybe more often than the average neighborhood. So you can tie all of this kind of information into your planning. And then, of course, this is kind of the national map of where these types of communities are located. And one other thing I can show here is you can always adjust the visibility range. And for these, it's nice to apply some transparency so you can always still see your base map there as well. Just one more example of how you could leverage this data. I'm going to come in here. I'm going to search for, actually, instead of searching for a layer, let's just say that I'm going to plan a new route and I'm interested in some of the demographics around my proposed route. Well, what I could do is I can come in here and I can add map notes. I'll just call this proposed route. And this creates a new, we call it map notes, but this is just another geographic layer. So I can select a line here. Let's just draw a proposed route, and we'll say it goes down Sheridan Boulevard here in Denver, cuts across Colfax, and goes up here. It's kind of a weird route, but we'll say this is our proposed route. And it's a little bit difficult to see, so let's come in here. And I'm not sure why my symbology, actually it might be in here. Change symbol, I apologize. I was expecting it to be over there. We'll make this red, make it a little bit thicker. Okay, so now we can see it. All right, so I have this, we'll say this is my proposed route, but now I'm curious about the demographics. Well, I have this now within my content here, and my perform analysis button is here. And this gives me access to all of the online analysis tools. But one thing I can use is data enrichment. And data enrichment gives you access to a lot of different data variables that are available through the Living Atlas. So if I want to know about income, for example, I can explore different income variables. I can bring in, we'll say I want to know the median household income. So I'll apply that, and I can add multiple variables here. And then it's asking me what's the service area, essentially. So you can use a linear distance, and we'll use a linear distance of, we'll say 0.5 miles. And we can run this analysis. And what this is going to show me is it's actually taking a look at the line, it's creating that buffer for me, and it's extracting that data from the Living Atlas and making that part of my layer here. So I'll be able to view the attributes, and in this case, I want to be looking at the median household income. So we'll give that just a second to finish up there. Excuse me. Now you can see that we have this proposed route line that has been enriched. So I'll turn this off, we'll turn this off. And when I click on this now, this is giving me some information. So this is telling me that the median household income within a half mile of this line is $50,797. So it's another way that you can leverage that content that Esri is making available to you there. Just some other things that I find really interesting and I think could be really useful too that are available through the Living Atlas and through ArcGIS content. This is what we call the World Imagery Wayback machine. So what this is a collection of aerial photography over time. So you can compare and contrast how changes have happened in a particular neighborhood. So I want to go to a place where I know there's been some changes. I'm going to go to St. Louis. Because I know that there has been some work done at the Arch grounds. So I'm going to zoom in on that area. So just starting off here, we're looking at the newest imagery that's available. I'm going to turn off the overlay so we can just see the photography here. What's great about this imagery is when you click on it, it's giving you some great metadata. So this is telling me this is coming from the East-West Gateway Council of Governments. That's the Council of Governments for St. Louis. Tells me when it was captured, tells me about the resolution and the accuracy. So metadata is right there at your fingertips. You don't have to wonder what's the vintage, what's the resolution, and so forth. It's right there, and it just tells you. But again, this is the Wayback machine. So I'm going to zoom in a little bit. And this is where a lot of the work has been happening. You can kind of see there that there's been some construction here. But I can, using my Wayback, let's move this over a little bit. I can go back in time, and you can see here on the heavy white lines, this is where we have a different vintage of photography. So I can click on this. This is updating that photography, and now you can see, I'm in the wrong spot. Let's go back a little bit. So you can see here how this has changed. The street, you can see here they're building that kind of land bridge that goes over the highway there. But I can continue to go back in time, and if you're doing some type of an assessment, looking at maybe different construction projects that are happening in your city, or how land use has changed and so forth, you can make use of this Wayback imagery. Another thing that's great about this is you can grab whatever vintage you want here, select this, and you can add this to an ArcGIS Online map. So you can grab all of these different layers, bring it into ArcGIS Online in your web map viewer, and use it there, and then mash it up with other data. You don't just have to use this particular viewer to use this data. Some other thing I wanted to show you is how you could leverage some live data sources. So again, coming in here, and it would help if I signed in. And let's just go in. I'll go back to the Denver area here. And I can add content, and I can search for layers. But there's various data sources that are available here that make use of live content that are freely available. So you can do a search for National Weather Service here, and search the Living Atlas again. And there's a number of different layers you can use here. So there's USA weather warnings and watches. We'll bring that in. There's the radar imagery, snowfall forecast, storm reports. I mean, there's just a whole wealth of data here that you can make use of. What's great about this, though, is this is actually live data. This is live information. So as I'm looking at this, let me turn off the snowfall forecast and the warnings. You can see here, if you can see out my window, it is actually snowing, and this is a live radar view. So you can have that real-time awareness here. So you can bring in this type of information. If we want to look at the snowfall forecast, we could bring that in. So not much snow, up to 1 inch, not too bad. Warnings and watches. We're okay here in Denver, but up in the mountains, looks like there's a winter weather advisory. So this is live content coming from the National Weather Service that you can make use of. Some other content you can bring in. So I'm going to look at subscription layers here. And you can bring in Waze live alerts. So if you're not familiar with Waze, it's kind of a crowdsourcing app that people use, gives them driving directions. But folks can also report traffic information. So is there a traffic jam? Is there a block in the road? Things like that, different road conditions. Is it snowy? Things like that. Well, Waze makes that data available for you. And it's through a subscription service, but the subscription is free. So you can actually sign up through Waze, and I'll provide a link to you for that. But generally speaking, nonprofit and government agencies can make use of the Waze content and bring that in. So I'm going to add in this data layer. This is just online content. I can pull this in with my subscription, and this is showing me all the Waze alerts. And we can see here that it's looking pretty crazy here in Denver right now, probably because it's snowing, but this is just information that you can have available within your map. So once you've created this map, I'll call this my operations view. I'll save this. So now I have this web map saved. I could then share this with other folks. But really, probably the best thing to do would be to create a web app and make an operations dashboard. So this will open the operations dashboard configuration for me. And then what I can do is I have this map now, but I can configure different widgets around this map. So maybe I want a list. I want a list of the Waze alerts, and I can come in and I can configure all of this. And now this is giving me a list of Waze alerts. Now, if I was going to take the time to do this, I would give this an appropriate title, probably the type of alert that it is. I can have this zoom in on the location and so forth. But really, once you've gone through all of this, you can create some really great and interactive dashboards. And I'm going to show you a couple examples of that, some that we've been working on. This is an example that we're working on for Hawaii. So here you can see we're bringing in those Waze alerts, and I can be logging the types of alerts that are coming in. It's flashing on the screen there. You can also see that I have the weather information in here as well. But we're also able to stream in their AVL information as well. So I can see in real time where are these buses located. In this case, how far off schedule are they? Because they make that information available through their feed. So this is a list of buses by, in this case, they're ranged in order of how far behind they are. And this particular one is 61 minutes off schedule, but I bet it's probably just sitting at the garage, which, as we zoom in here, yes, this is their bus garage. Hundreds of buses there, so it's probably actually not late. But this is giving me that real-time operations view here. So I can go to the particular bus that I'm looking for, zoom in on it, it's showing me where it's at in real time. But then I also have this traffic information in here as well, so I can view what the traffic situation is. So maybe it's late, I can see, oh, well, it's stuck in a traffic jam. You know, could we think about doing a reroute or some type of, if we can't do a reroute, maybe send out an RSS or text to our transit riders letting them know that the bus is late. Similar note, this is consuming real-time information. This is AVL information from New York MTA buses. And as you can tell, they have a lot of buses in service. So the way we're rendering this is by a grid. We can see here in this grid, there's 487 buses. But as we zoom in, we'll get that live view of the buses. And we're also getting those Waze alerts as well. So here I can see what bus I'm looking at, but then I also have the Waze alerts. And this is just another configuration of the operations dashboard. Then I can also have some other maps configured for the weather feed. So if I don't want all of that in one map, I can do this in various other tabs. So here I can see weather watches and warnings. This is telling me there's a winter storm watch. Here's the precipitation forecast. So this is telling me that, you know, we're expecting maybe 1/10 of an inch of precipitation here. And then here they're looking at snowfall, and then in New York in the summertime you have active hurricanes. Now this one's empty because there's no active hurricanes right now, but snowfall could be an issue, and right now it doesn't look like there's anything predicted there. But again, we're making use of freely available information and just pulling that in to a dashboard. So I'd encourage you to do the same. Now the one piece that you're not going to find is the AVL data. To configure AVL data, we're usually using something like GeoEvent processor. So GeoEvent is a server role that we have, GeoEvent server, and it allows you to bring in your real-time information here. So if I looked at the Hawaii buses in this case, this is the GeoEvent service that's running in here. And this is just pulling in the XML data that's being published by the transit agency. So if your agency pushes out AVL data to developers either through XML or GTFS real-time, or really any number of other types of services, you can probably create an input for that. So if I do a search for GTFS, this allows me to configure a connector for GTFS real-time information and allows me to view my AVL data. So this is getting a little bit further into the technology here. This is a server deployment, but I just wanted to make you aware of this. If you wanted to consume your AVL data, there are ways to do that. Okay, and finally, for me to wrap up, I want to show you maps for public policy. So this is a new web app that's been put together by our Living Atlas team and our content team. And the idea here is to be able to create maps that really drive public policy and really help with data-driven decisions. So there's a lot of things you can explore here, but I think the best way to do this is to look at your location. So I'm just going to pick a city here, and I'm going to pick Louisville, Kentucky. And it's asking me a topic. What do I want to explore? I want to look at population. And this is going to launch Esri Maps for Public Policy for me here. And it's going to be zoomed in on Louisville. And it's going to give me a collection of maps, and in this case, related to population. So there's a collection of 8 maps here that it chose for me. I can scroll through these maps. So this is showing male and female population. This is showing total population, population under 18, predominant language, education, poverty risk. So a lot of information that's available within here. And I am not in Louisville. Here we go. Got zoomed out. So it collects these maps for me, and I can quickly just take a look at these. And what's great about this is if I want to remove one of these maps from my collection, I can. So say I'm not interested in the total population map, I can remove that. It's now showing me that I have 7 maps here. But maybe I want to add more maps to my collection. So I can come in here, look at social equity, for example, and I'm interested in access to opportunity. I can click that, and this is giving me some information about access. So here's a supermarket access map, teen employment rate, male and female disconnected youth. Well, I can view any one of these maps, or I can add it to my collection. So I just did that here. Now my 8th map is the supermarket access map. So there's a lot of great information in here. So there's information about multimodal transportation, for example. So you can come in here, predominant means of transportation. And it's actually already in my collection, but I can see that here. But the idea is once you've created your collection, and you can have as many maps as you want in this, you can then share this with policymakers, executives, whoever needs access to this information. So all I have to do is I can click this button here. This creates an email for me. So it's populated the email for me. It's telling, so it just says kind of a generic, I was exploring policy maps, found this collection, here's what I found, here's the link, and I can email that to whoever I need. I could also tweet it or post it to Facebook, or in this case, I could just copy this link and send this out to whoever I want, and it's going to give them that collection of maps at the zoom level that you are already in. There's no saving that you have to do. I don't know if you noticed, but I wasn't even signed in. There's nothing to sign into here. This is freely available. Anybody can come in here and use this. So this is a really great tool. So this is kind of the shared view here. You don't have all of the buttons to change the collection, but here you have the 8 maps available to you here, zoomed into the appropriate level. Really kind of a cool way to share information, and I think it's pretty powerful because I know I used to work in public transit as a solution, or not solution engineer, so I do now, as a GIS specialist. And a lot of times I was asked, hey, can you just throw together a few maps that show population density and income? Well, I would have to go in, find that data, scrub the data, publish a map, probably a PDF. Well, here, really quick web application, don't even have to sign in, pull in the maps I need, send off the link, good to go. So hopefully all of that's useful for you. I hope you take some time to explore that. I will make those links available to you. But at this time now, I'm going to switch over to Shayla, and she's going to talk a little bit about new user types. So Shayla, if you're ready.
I'm ready.
You should be good to go now.
Okay, I'm hoping that you guys can see this PowerPoint. And I'll make this really quick because I know we're coming around to the end of our hour here. Esri responded to requests from customers in creating new user types. We got a lot of feedback. People, asked about, hey, could we do something in between level 1, level 2? And so this is kind of a result of that. And this took place in ArcGIS Online in December 2018. And this change will also happen in Enterprise 10.7 when it's released in March, but it will not happen unless you make that upgrade. And so just to kind of put that out as a little bit of background as far as the timing goes for these. Just wanted to point out the different types now. Formerly known as level 1 would be your viewer. And so this is the person who can just log in and view only all of the things that the person on the upper right, the creator, has made. So the creator was formerly known as level 2. And so this person has full access to everything in ArcGIS Online. They're able to create maps and apps. They're able to do spatial analysis, share things, and basically have all the same access that they ever had before when they were called a level 2 user type. And so you will have noticed with your ArcGIS Online users that now if you go in to administer ArcGIS Online, that those are now called viewers and creators. And so all of the access that the people had who were assigned to those particular users will remain the same. The only change that you'll see is the title change for those. So we've added 3 other types. Going on the second level down, the editor is somebody who has access to view all of the items that they have access to in ArcGIS Online, and they're able to edit and add spatial data to the layers that they have access to. And so this might be a person for a transit agency where if somebody calls in with an update on an asset, they're able to just go in and make those updates, versus the field worker who is able to use field data collection apps and go out and edit that data using those apps for real-time data collection. And so the final user type is the GIS professional. And so this particular user type has all the same access as the level 2, formerly known as level 2, and creator type, but this particular license comes with a license to ArcGIS Pro. And so all of these user types, as were the level named users before, are 1-year annual term licenses. And so that remains the same. So with that GIS professional, with the ArcGIS Pro license that they get, that's a 1-year term license. So moving along to the next slide, we'll talk about the capabilities and apps for each user type. So the user types each come with a certain bundle of apps. the viewer has kind of the least amount of access because they're just getting into ArcGIS Essential Apps viewer only mode. And so that one's pretty self-explanatory. And we'll go over what the app bundles are on the next slide. So for editing purposes, and actually something to point out, all user types do have access to the ArcGIS Essential Apps bundle. And so the editor and the field worker are actually able to go in and edit versus where the viewer is just able to view only. And then the difference between the editor and the field worker is that the field apps bundle comes with the field worker user type, and they're able to use those apps in the field to enter data. So we talked about the creator and the GIS professional. They basically have access to everything, with the only difference between the two being that license to ArcGIS Pro. So moving along to the next slide, we've got the different types of apps. And so the essential apps basically allow all of the users to go in and view the apps and maps that they have access to with their named user, with their logon. And so the viewer is able to view the maps, view the story maps and the dashboards, just not able to do any editing, where the editor and field worker, of course, are able to. You'll see that the Field Apps bundle has Collector and Survey 123. Those are both for gathering data, and then Workforce, which is for being assigned the data. The Office Apps bundle allows the creator and the GIS professional to use maps for Office and maps for SharePoint as well. And of course, everybody would like to know about pricing. And so as was formerly, the level 1, which is now the viewer, is still $100 per license. Creator is $500, and then the other options allow for a little bit of flexibility where you know, people didn't necessarily need to have all of the access and all of the capabilities of the creator. So field worker is slightly less expensive, and then the editor is less expensive as they have a little bit less access than the field worker. So the GIS professional starts at $700, and the reason it says starting at $700 is with the ArcGIS Pro licenses, you've got your basic, standard, and advanced, and so those are priced differently. So I did include my email address here if anyone has any questions on this. And Jay, I'll go ahead and bring it back to you. That was all I had on user types, and so we're able to take question and answer at this time. If I don't know if anybody has submitted any questions, but
Yeah, actually, it looks like there's quite a few questions here. Let's try to go through some of these here. Let me pull this up. So, what is the position accuracy for Collector? Collector uses the location services of your device. So, if you're using an iPad or a phone or a tablet of some sort, it's going to be using the internal location accuracy of that device. Now, you can set an accuracy threshold in Collector to say, don't collect the point if it's doesn't meet the, you know, within 5 meters or sub-meter or whatever it might be, whatever your accuracy requirement is. You can also connect Collector to an external GPS device. So if you need that really high accuracy, there's a lot of, I'll say relatively cost-effective Bluetooth GPS devices that give you really good accuracy that you can connect to your mobile device and stream into Collector. So So to answer the question, it's using the accuracy of the device or whatever device you're connected to. Next question, are all the solutions apps? A lot of them are applications, but a lot of them are just configurations for example, ArcGIS Pro. So if you need to do crime analysis, for example, there's some ArcGIS Pro tools in there that you can download from the solution site, and it gives you a nice toolbar to do crime analysis within ArcGIS Pro. So if you just go through there and look, some of them are apps, some of them are web app configurations, some of them are additions to the desktop software. It really varies. So some suggestions, it looks like, for the use of quick capture, like looking at the accessibility of stops, capturing passenger counts would be good, yeah. Are all the data in the Living Atlas free to download and use? Yes, with the exception of some of that premium content. So the Tapestry data, for example, will use some credits for viewing that data, but otherwise it's free to use, and it will notify you if you need to use those credits. Some of the uses of quick capture. Suggestions for connecting it to a Raspberry Pi with a sensor. I haven't heard of that yet, so this is a very new application, so we're really kind of looking for those use cases. So if anyone out there wants to take a stab at using Quick Capture, and let me know how it goes, I'd love to hear. Maybe using it for rail transit safety, I think that makes sense. Yeah, especially a rail operator, you could be capturing some information as you're going down the alignment. Is that through the GTFS real-time feed? I assume that's in reference to the dashboards. So the Hawaii dashboard is actually using an XML feed that the transit agency makes available. The New York feed, the MTA feed, was coming from GTFS real-time. So both those agencies make that feed available to the public, so we just scraped those, pulled it in through GeoEvent, and created that dashboard. Let's see. Is Collector integrated with Pro? Well, I wouldn't say. So it's all interconnected through WebGIS. So with Collector, you're collecting information. It's going into your system of record. So whether that's ArcGIS Online or ArcGIS Enterprise, but as that data is being collected, you can pull that into ArcGIS Pro for further analysis or further editing, or if you need to add, delete points. So since it's all connected through WebGIS, I will say that they are integrated, but there's really no, I guess, direct connection necessarily between the two applications, other than WebGIS, you're consuming the same data source. Is live traffic available for South Africa? I believe it is. I believe the traffic service that we have available is for the world. I would encourage you to explore that though to make sure, but I believe the traffic service is available throughout the world for most locations. Live alerts from Waze was last updated 2017. I'm not sure when that's in reference to. Maybe there was it could be an incorrect attribute maybe that was showing. I'm not sure, but those Waze feeds are live because I've kind of watched them throughout the day, and they change as traffic patterns change. How updated can we have the Waze data in ArcGIS Online? That should be real time, and in fact, I've brought in our traffic service and the Waze data alerts, and they always line up really well together. They're two completely different services, but you'll see the Waze alerts lay right on top of where we're showing traffic jams in our service, so it is real time. So that kind of looks like it for the questions, and I know we went a little bit over time here, but I do appreciate you all participating today. I hope this was useful for you. I did put some links in the chat window, so if you have a second, go ahead and grab those real quick and bookmark those. Take a look at that. And with that said, we'll finish up, and we'll hope to see you on the next webcast. Thank you.